All right. Hey, friends, good morning. Thank you for sacrificing the time on a Saturday morning, getting up, getting put together, and getting out here to join us. My hope is that this morning is going to be an encouragement to you, a blessing to you as you think about the kids in your family, in your life, in your world. We are so grateful for the privilege of having Mark Gregston back here at CPC. It has been years, actually a good chunk of time since we've had Mark out here before. And what we experienced last time is a lot of people just very grateful for Mark and his wisdom and what he shared. And a lot of people have, I had a conversation with a mom who said, oh my gosh, he's back. That book that he wrote, she said, it's next to my Bible. It's my other go-to book. And I use it all the time to just figure out how to start conversations with my teenager, how to connect with them, how to understand them. So it's a huge blessing. If you don't know who Mark Gregston is, Mark is somebody who has been in the world of working with teens and ministry with teens for a long, long time. He runs an interventive residential counseling ministry out in Texas called Heartlight Ministries. And we have known about Heartlight for a long time. It's an incredible program, and it really, really is an incredibly valuable resource for teens who find themselves kind of at the end of their rope in really difficult times. And Mark's ministry there really helps teenagers put their lives back together when things have come apart. Our hope for all of you is that you never need that ministry. But it's great to know that it's there if things ever get to a really tough spot. Our hope this morning is that you would be blessed by the years and years of wisdom that Mark has gained from ministry with kids, that you would gain from that wisdom some insights and some perspective on how to keep your kids on a healthy path where God wants them to be. We know that parenting is not easy. We know that your job as parents is a lot harder than it was for the generation before us, and it's just getting more and more difficult. We live in a crazy world that just gets a little crazier every day. So I'm praying that this morning is going to be a blessing. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you don't know our facility, the restrooms are just behind that wall. So if you go out the back and turn to the right, you'll see the restrooms just right back there. At any point during this morning, we're just really casual. If you just need to warm up that coffee, you don't have to apologize. Just get up, sneak out your row, get a refill on the coffee or get another burrito. Make yourself at home. It's a workshop, not a worship service. So you can just kind of feel free to make yourself at home this morning. No apologies. I want to start by just opening us with a word of prayer, and then we're going to invite Mark up. Would you bow your heads with me? Lord God, we are just grateful this morning for the chance to sit under Mark's teaching, just to gain wisdom from the wisdom that you've given to him. Father, we pray that you would use this morning to give each of us one new insight or perspective that might change the way that we influence our kids in your direction, Lord. So would you help us to be just good listeners, thoughtful, reflective listeners as we think about ourselves as parents and our kids that we love. And Father, just pray that you leverage this for your purpose this morning. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you welcome Mark on up?
It is good to be here and see that you guys got rid of the green carpet. That stuff was awful. It was awful, and I knew it then, and I think about it occasionally. When I throw up, when I'm having a bad day, I mean, it's just kind of, it was just awful. I've been here before, but I can't remember when. I just know that it was completely different in here. There were windows or something back here. The place faced the wrong direction. It was like, some 80s group on acid put this thing together, and so finally somebody came and fixed it and got it where it looks good. But it is good to be with you this morning. And hopefully we'll spend some time really talking about really scratching where you itch, not having some guy from Texas with a mustache from 1880 I got this letter not long ago. It says, "Dear Mark, please send us back our mustache." Signed 1880. And I'm just kind of going, but I've just kind of gotten to the point of I don't care what I look like anymore. And when I was in my 20s, there was a book that was written, there was a book that was written called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And when I turned 30, I wanted to write a book called I'm Okay, You're Not. And because I really thought that. I thought I had it all together. And then when my wife and I went through counseling at 40, because she was screwed up, then I wanted to write a book called I'm Not Okay, and neither are you. And then when I turned 50, I wanted to write a book called I'm Not Okay, but I don't care anymore. Then I turned 60, and when I turned 60, I wanted to write a book, because I lived with 60 high school kids. I wanted to write a book called Tasering Kids God's Way. And I just thought it had a ring to it that would be good, but we can't find a publisher to put it out. There's another book that I want to write called Shut Your Pie Hole and Learn to Listen. And somebody says, "You can't say that." My wife goes, "You can't say that." I go, "Pie hole, honey, it's your mouth, pie hole. You have to keep that." She goes, "You can't say that. You just can't use that word." You can't do anything, especially here in California. You can't say things for fear that somebody's going to turn it over. It was fun last night watching all the commercials of your governor running for some prop thing or something. There's always a prop here in California, which is amazing to me. Is anybody related to Governor Newsom here? But anyway, but in Texas, we're looking at it going, it's a little different. But anyway, it is so good to be here, and it's always good to spend time with parents and grandparents. And little did I know that when we started working with a group called Young Life, when my wife and I were both 19, we've been together for 52 years, been married 47 of that. Our first date was when this Christian band came through Tulsa, Oklahoma, called Led Zeppelin. And that was our first date. And then we dated all through high school, went off different schools. I swam at the University of Arkansas and left that, went to Oklahoma State, who plays somebody today, I think. They play TCU. Yeah, we'll see what happens. And TCU could whoop up on them a little bit. And then came back to Tulsa University, and somebody walked up to me and said, "Would you like to lead a Young Life Club?" Yeah, I guess. And so we started doing that, and 2 weeks into it, a man walks up to me, picking up his son, says, "I'm struggling with my son. What do I do?" I don't know. Let him come live with me. And that's really how it started. And so the next year, Jane and I got married, and we've always had kids living with us. My degree is in real estate investments and finance. It's really not with any kids, even though I went to work for a church after that, and while I was going through school with the idea of going to law school, and all this time, we had kids living with us, and I was doing the youth group thing where we had 400 or 500 kids involved with us, and so always doing that. Went to a sports camp in Branson, Missouri, was there for a number of years, but still, my heart was with these kids that were struggling. Little did I know that what God was really doing was teaching us about kids, and so we started to kind of just formulate this idea of here's some things that we need to deal with. Here's some things we can teach other people. And here's things that some wisdom we can pass on to everybody, and with the hopes that they can avoid. And I think you're 100% right, 150% right. My job is to keep you from ever having to send your child to come live with us. Please hear that. I lived with 60 high school kids. We started a program called Heartlight 34 years ago. My idea was to have 8 kids and raise horses. That was it. And I thought, we'll just work with kids. And little did I know that it was going to grow where it was. And to make a long story short, somebody said, "Come do radio." And I said, "I can't stand anybody on the radio, and because I think they're all a bunch of morons." And anybody here on the radio? Okay, I don't mean, but that's really what I thought, except for a guy named Chuck Swindoll, who I've been a fan of all my life, and somebody said, you need to do that. And I said, well, and reluctantly, I said, okay, we'll do it. And then somebody said, you need to write a book. And I go, I don't even read books. I mean, but you got to be kidding me. The idea of writing a book is something so foreign to me. And so some guy from Oregon said, you need to do this. And so started doing that. And who would have thought that here we are 20-some books later, and, you know, I spent a couple hundred nights on the road speaking and doing things around the country. And our radio program's on 1900 stations, more than any other program, which is Chuck Swindoll and I. He's now 148, 49 years old, and we always argue about who's on how many stations, like that really matters. And now the podcast thing is kind of just blown up, and it's been somewhat crazy. And I say that just that I've now lived with over 3,000 kids. We were involved with Young Life with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids, and did the church thing in a sports camp that has 25,000 kids. We've been around the block with kids. And sometimes I would tell you that if you're still holding on to your green carpet way of parenting, this is the only time that I tell people that they're wrong. Men don't like to be told they're wrong. Am I right? Of course I'm right. And but men don't like to be told they're wrong. And so I never tell people they're wrong, except here. Except when I say this, that if you think that your style of parenting during the preteen years is going to be effective during the teen years, you are wrong. It's changed. The landscape looks completely different. Is that the air coming on, or did a water line just break or something? Okay, I'm just checking. Going to get baptized here. It's a new. California does baptisms a little bit different. They just spray you down with Oh, is that what that is? Oh, okay. I thought maybe it's a little hot tub for a weary pastor that needs to just take a break occasionally. And so I think what we've seen change in this culture has got us all alarmed to some point. And it's one of these cultures that you and I have said that we're glad that we don't have to grow up in this culture. I mean, when you think about that, I mean, it's 4.3 million porn sites, which was everything I prayed for when I was in the 7th grade. You know, I didn't know there were that many naked women in the world. I mean, but you look at the accessibility of communication, you look at how kids interact with one another, and at the core of it, at the very core, and I want you to hear this, if you don't hear anything else that I mention or talk about or show you or whatever, I want you to know that your child is created to be relational. God has created them as a relational being. To him, to other people, I mean, even within themselves, they are longing to have relationship. Here's the problem with this culture. Our kids are not developing relationships. If you have a discipline problem, you have a relationship problem. And that may be an adopted child that has a relationship problem with a birth parent or something going on, but there is a relationship problem going on. And our kids just don't spend enough time developing those deeper relationships. They don't know how. And as a result of iron not sharpening iron, our kids aren't as mature as you and I would love for them to be at a time, truly at a time, that they have to face more life-changing decisions than they ever have before. They can do stupid stuff that will change the direction of their life quickly. And if somebody says, wow, Mark's up there talking about all those kids that get sent off to other programs. We've had 2 or 3 kids of your kids in this church that are wonderful kids come and live with us. The kids that live with us are a wonderful group of kids. If they walked in, you'd go, man, that is one fine-looking group of kids. I mean, they're just wonderful, wonderful kids that are struggling, making poor choices, are at odds with their family, and half of them are going to be dead if they don't stick with us and get through things. That's what they would say. And so there's a part of it that even they realize the intensity of the culture, and we kind of sit back and say, well, I'm going to hold on to some of the stuff about what I learned about parenting, or how I have seen it done or what I think might be good, or I'm going to continue with the same patterns of parenting when my kids gave me coffee mugs that said world's greatest dad, world's greatest mom. I mean, you don't just see those people with t-shirts that world's greatest dad, where, they come into church and they're beaming, and they don't have teens yet. You just know they don't have teens. They just think I'm a great parent. Everybody else is so bad and I'm just unbelievable. And then their child turns 12 or their daughter starts their period and everything just goes in a minute. The child that walks upstairs is not the same one that comes down the next morning and parents are going, what did we do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. The culture is changing our kids, and I'm not an anti-world kind of guy. And the other part of it is your kid is thinking differently than they did than their preteen years. And it's coming for all of you. How many of y'all have preteens? Wonderful, wonderful. How many of y'all have teens? They're the ones that drink more. And how many of y'all are grandparents? Isn't this grandparenting thing great? Grandkids are a reward for not killing your own kids. They really are. It's like a mulligan. It's like it's a do-over. Yeah, I screwed up my kids, and so now I get to play with my grandkids, and I love them. I've got 4 grandkids. They're 9, 10, 17, and 21. And God, they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. And my daughter looks at me all the time. She goes, Dad, it's almost like you like them more than us. She goes, well, you want to do things with them. You don't want to do things with us. Dad, I'm serious. What you do now during your teens, adolescent years, either as you get ready for it, or as they pass through these years, will determine who they marry. It'll determine how they parent their kids, your grandkids. And mark my words, one day you'll go, remember that old guy that got up front and made that comment about grandparenting? He was right. You guys aren't far. Somebody came up and says, I've got an 18, because she's young and going to TCU, 18, 17, 16, and 13. I don't know why you did it that way. It's just, you didn't think through things. Either that or your husband just can't leave you alone. For Pete's sake, stop, And there's a part of it where you look at it and you go, but you're not far from being a grandma. When you think about it, you're not far from that. And when you get that grandbaby, you'll be going, man, it's something. So what you're doing as you move into these adolescent years, you're investing in the destiny of your family. There's a tendency to think, well, my child gets more involved in doing other things and they're gone and everything. This is the time that your kids need you the most. Quit serving on every kind of board there is and during your kids' teen years. Invest it in the life of your child. They need you the most because they're not getting the relationships from people around them. And so my bottom line message that I want people to know is that your kids are struggling relationally. They're created for a relationship, and that's why they're doing the stupid things they're doing. Some of you don't even know about yet that they're doing. Do your parents know everything that you did when you were in high school? Do they know everything that you did when you were in junior high or middle school? What makes you think you know everything about what your kids are doing? Do you know the numbers of girls sending nudes? Is that not the numbers of people? Middle school kids? Oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. A middle school kid sending a nude of herself? Does she have any equipment to show off? Think about that for a minute. Or a guy that goes, I'm just going to take a picture of my ding dong and send it to somebody because they'll love that. Think about that for a minute. Think about that. I mean, I did that. I was on a trip, and so I took a picture of me, and I sent it to Jan. By the time I got home, she had thrown up all over the walls and everything. I mean, she was just going, what are you doing? I mean, think about the stupidity of that. Think about how desperate you would have to be to take a nude picture of yourself and send it to somebody and say, will you just pay attention to me? Will you just pay attention to me? But your kids are desperate, and don't for a minute think that it can't happen to your kid. The kids that live with us are great kids. They're wonderful kids. They're no different than your kids. People get this idea that they're not. They're exactly like your kids. They are your kids. And people get the idea, no, that can never happen. I go, yes, it can. And so you can either choose to raise your kids to live in a zoo, or you can prepare them to survive in the jungle. And so there's a part of it where this time during adolescence is one where you've got to spend time with them and develop that relationship. The second part of it is you've got to be engaged in such a way to switch from a teaching model to a training model. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. You've got to be the one that helps them get prepared for the days ahead. When Scripture says, train up a child, it doesn't say teach up a child. Your kids have had more teaching than you and I ever had growing up. And they are bombarded with teaching. The issue is not that they don't have enough information. It's more that they don't have enough wisdom to know how to apply the things that we've taught them to their life. That's why the American Medical Association has increased the age of adolescence to age 27. American Journal of Adolescent Psychiatry has increased it to age 26. Our kids are more immature at a time that they have fewer relationships, that they are bombarded with everything, everywhere. And a message that I would love for each one of you to give your kids. There's nothing you can do to make me love you more. There's nothing you can do to make me love you less. That's what your kids want to hear from you. So do that tonight. Go and just knock on the door tonight before they go to bed. And just say, can I come in for a second? And they may hate you. They may be rolling their eyes at you. They can't stand you. Just walk in and say, I just got something to tell you. I just want you to know that there's nothing you can do to make me love you more. And there's nothing you can do to make me love you less. And don't ruin it by saying, some guy told me to say this. Don't do that. We ruin it so much. Well, I'm supposed to do this because I want to be a good parent, so I want you to know. See what I'm saying? Just say it, turn and walk out. Your kids are going to be sitting there going, oh, God, Dad's drinking again. It's just... But it's a message they want to hear. They don't have relationships. They're not being prepared for the world they're going to be living in. They feel somewhat disconnected with you because they feel like you're holding on to old school green carpet ways of parenting. They think that you're not really engaged with them. You have no clue. They think you're judgmental. They think you demand perfection, and they think you're being authoritative. And those things just don't work anymore. And that's where I spend time going, okay, then how do we come up with something different to help you get to a place that it's a little bit better? Are you following me so far? Okay, this thing's going to go fast. It just goes fast. It's already 11 o'clock. We're done. Let's close in a word of prayer real quick. But it's going to go fast. And so I want to get through some of these things, and I'm just going to hit them. That we all know this, that there's something about you understanding kids and beginning to get of just saying, okay, I get this. I know what's happening in their world. And when you do, it changes your perspective a little bit. You'd be like the pastor of the church walking up here, and he's coming down the aisle, and he's just kind of going, and he's bouncing back and forth, and you would think, well, he's been up at Napa a little bit too long, too many wine tastings today, and bouncing back and forth, and he comes up here, and he walks up here, and he comes over to me, and everybody's looking at him going, oh, man, he's drunk, and somebody else would go, man, no, he's fired. That's what he is. And so he's doing all this, and he's coming over, and he puts his arm around me and goes, Mark, and throws up all over my boots. And you guys would be mad, angry, upset, embarrassed that you have a pastor that's been here for 12 years that really went through the ridding of the green carpet and you'd be sitting here going, this guy, I hate him. We're going to get rid of him. Can't stand him. I don't want anything to do with him. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to talk to him anymore. I go, whoa, wait a minute. He's not drunk. He's having an aneurysm. I would now be honored that he's coming to me. I would now be honored that he came. Matter of fact, it wouldn't matter if he threw up in my boots or not. Matter of fact, it's not an embarrassment. And the truth of the matter is, if you understood what was really happening, you would run to him in a heartbeat. Every one of you in this room would run to him. And we get this idea of what we see is one thing, but what's really happening is something totally different. You think that kids are being rebellious. I've only really met 2 rebellious kids in my life. 2, I would say, are just really rebellious. I think they're all lost. They're lost in a world that is so confusing for them and so contrary to how they've been raised. And so when you get that understanding, it changes your perspective and how you respond to them. When a child tells you to F off or to stick something where it doesn't even fit in your body and all that stuff, you just go, those things really don't matter. And please don't hear me saying it's okay for your kids to say that and do that. I mean, I know what Scripture says. I was Oklahoma Bible quiz champ of 1969, so I get it. But I'm just saying, when you begin to understand what's happening, you go, now it changes my perspective. And you see why you're so needed in their lives. And so the next thing is that teens are just selfish. They're really selfish, that they have this sense of entitlement that they want you to give them everything. Am I right? And we do. Sometimes I think in the absence of the relationship, we give them things to keep them up. And so we do this thing where we spend time during the first, I really think it's this, that the first few years of their life, we do nothing but please them all the time. And then it kind of moves to where what we're doing is just protecting them, because we know they'd kill themselves if we didn't protect them. And we do that until, they're 12 or 13. Then we start providing for them, because now it matters what they wear. Remember when it didn't matter? Socks don't match, shoes on the different feet, pants are on backwards. They're going, I don't care. Now it really matters. So we provide. And so those 3 P's, the pleasing and protecting and providing, then we never get to the point of preparing them for the world that they're going to be living in. And we've got to. Because they live in a performance world where it's all about what they look like and how they appear. I mean, look at their Snapchat, look at their TikTok, look at Instagram, look at your Instagram, look at your fake book. I mean, it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. And for some reason we're going, will somebody just look at me? I mean, do y'all get on Facebook and anybody here on Facebook? And nobody wants to raise their hand. Friend me. And so I'll spend time just scrolling endless hours, through a bunch of people I don't know, finding out how miserable my life is because I never go on vacations like everybody else does, and here we are in Italy, and I'm going, well, who cares? I memorized the book of Hebrews backwards in Spanish. Oh, wow. I did 10,000 push-ups. Well, I hope you die of a heart attack. I mean, it's just, you hear of all this stuff and it's just bombardment of information and you just go, you've got to be kidding me. But it's all about how I look. It's truly all about how I look. And when you do that, when you live in a world, then your kids are consumed with that more so than they are anything. Why? Because that's the relational component. It's how I come across, because they're not engaging with one another. Are you following me? This has changed the face of kids. And I'm not one that says, don't give them a cell phone. Matter of fact, I'm quite the opposite. I'm going to tell you to give them a cell phone at 8 and 9 years of age. Now, keep them off the internet. But give them the phone. Help them learn that you can connect through that. You can engage. You can have a small circle of friends that you can talk with. You get this idea that you can protect them from everything. You can't. It's all accelerated. I picked up my granddaughter at school, and she's in 3rd grade. And this little punk kid came running up and goes, "Macy, you want to have sex with me?" That's what I thought in my mind. I thought, how dare you expose my child, my grandchild, to something that's... And yet I thought, your kids are hearing the F-bomb drop 400 times a day at their Christian school, going through the cafeteria line, grabbing a corn dog. Do you guys have corn dogs in California, or had they been outlawed yet? I mean, are you guys following me on this? So it changes a little bit. They live in an appearance and performance world. They want to be seen a certain way. That's why it's so important for them to have the right things, to have the right phone, to have the right car, to have the right everything. It's not because they are just money grubbers. I'm not saying that. It is because they don't have relationships and they're longing for relationships, and you're known by how you appear. Are you following me? Okay. The other thing is this: they're exposed to everything. I mean, your kids are really being exposed to everything. I mean, I'm exposed to everything. I find in my head that I cuss a lot more than I used to. Do you? I watch movies that I would never have watched 15 years ago. And I sit there and I just watch it and I go, that's not that big of a deal. I guess there's The Last Kingdom. That's how that happens, you know. I mean, but we would have never watched that. I tolerate things that I wouldn't have tolerated 15 years ago. You hear people cussing, yelling, and screaming, saying whatever. People used to get up and fight over stuff like that. Don't say that in front of my wife. You know, now it's just kind of, we've all been exposed to things. Why do you think modesty is such a big issue with so many of our kids? The more you show, the more people that you get to respond to you in a way. But it doesn't really matter because we've seen it all, haven't we? All the time. And so there's a part of it where it's understanding that the world that they're living in is one that is somewhat confusing, that they really are ambiguous in wanting to live in the world that you've taught them and raised them, and at the same time, they're wanting to fulfill the very thing that they've been created for, and that's to have relationships. And so we think it's a battle. I look at it and say it's an opportunity. So you can either become one of these that are what I would call an enemy of your kids, or you can become an ally. And it just means that you've got to change the way that you engage with them in some way. And most of our kids begin to feel like this God thing doesn't work. And I say that, and I say that because they don't have the examples that you and I had when we were growing up. Even though I didn't know that some of the examples that I had before me were pretty rotten people. But I didn't hear everything about their life. I mean, they hear the minute that a pastor does something wrong in Boca Chitaville, Indiana, you know, and so now they eliminate all pastors. What's your child, when you say the word politician, what's the first thing that comes to their mind? When you say the word priest, with all due respect to the Catholic Church, what do your kids think? When they think of cop, policeman, what do they think? I mean, it's amazing to me. It's just amazing to me because they've been exposed to everything. They are really ones that go, this thing isn't working. And I think that it's not what we say anymore that makes all the difference. It's what they see in us. That it's the example that we set before them. As Scripture would say, I'll mention it tomorrow morning, but it's the Scripture that says that you remember how we walked blameless among you. We were blameless, encouraging, inspiring, you know, all along, so that you may walk in a manner that's worthy of God. But it starts somewhere where you say, it's the example that I set. You get the idea that you got to talk all the time. You don't have to talk all the time, because the greatest witness is your witness with your child. It is you. It's the Word becoming flesh in your life and dwelling among your child. Just like Christ did for me, that I would do that for my kids. Are you following that? Grandparents, you're the same. Got to quit sharing your opinion all the time. Nobody really wants it. You know, well, you know what I think? No, I really don't know, but I don't care either. You know, I got to tell you. because your parents aren't telling you, so I got to help you get to a good place. Even a fool appears wise when he keeps his mouth shut. You following me? Moms, you got to quit talking so much. I got to look at every mom here because you're going, I can't believe he said that. Most men are going, that dude's in trouble. You got to quit talking so much. Why? Because if all you are is a source of information, your kids don't need you anymore. Because they have this. Hey Siri, how many people were killed in the Civil War?
According to Battlefields.org, approximately 620,000 soldiers died from combat, accident, starvation, and disease during the Civil War.
I don't need you. If all you do is share information, I've got the Library of Congress right here. And so I'll shut you down. That's what I do on Facebook. I'll spend time and I'll go through and I go, I get so overwhelmed that I just got to say, it's like watching Fox. Does anybody here work for Fox News? It's like watching Fox News and it's yap, 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 yap. Yap, 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 yap. And then when you get tired of that, let's turn on The View. Yap, 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 yap. Let's turn on and hear just people yap, 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 yap. Sometimes I just got to turn it off and stop because it's driving me nuts. I may agree with everything that's being said. I'm going through Facebook looking at stuff and I'm going, I got to stop. I just have to stop. It's a bombardment. I'm watching people I don't even know and I'll never meet. And I got to stop. Your kids are being bombarded so much. When you and I grew up, information in this world turned over every 13 years. Codified information doubled every 13 years. Do you know how quickly it's doubling now? Every hour and a half. I don't know what happens when we get down to 1 minute. But your kids are being bombarded. And this is what they'll do. They'll turn you off if all you are is a source of information. So you've got to stop. You've got to stop talking all the time. And here's why. Because your kids will shut you off, and every man in this room knows this to be true. That any one of you women in this room possesses more wisdom than all the men in this room put together. And if your kids shut you off, they will never get the wisdom that they need to hear that you possess. Are you following me? That's where the world's changed. Now information is different. I've got to change my style of engagement, which means I've just got to switch it up a little bit. Your kids are created for relationship. They're created for relationship. And that's what they long for. And I would tell you that's the number one thing. The relationship that they have with you is the number one thing in their life during their adolescent years. Somebody goes, no, it's their relationship with Christ. And I go, no, it's not. Is that blasphemous? Can I still speak tomorrow morning at church if I say that? Because you are a reflection of Christ, and you're the one that calls them back, and you're the one that's involved in their life. You're the one that tethers them to that relationship with Christ. You're the one that speaks truth into their life. You're the one that you do all those things. That's important that you continue to go. I'm going to continue to pull you, but I'm not going to do it the same way that we've been doing it because it doesn't work anymore. And it doesn't work anymore because your kid has changed and culture has changed. So you just got to engage differently. And I'm going to submit to you that you really move from a teaching model to a training model. Are you with me so far? Okay, here's the crazy thing. It's already 9:30. We're already an hour through. We got 30 more minutes. I told you it's going to go fast. And I'm willing to stay. I've got to be back up in Napa today at, I think, 5 o'clock or 4:30 or something like that. I'll stay all afternoon if you want. Well, not for the Tennessee-Alabama game or the TCU-OSU game. But I think it's switching and really changing and moving from this teaching model to a training model. And that becomes key. Because, can I measure it this way and say that this is the first 12 years of their life and this is the next 12 years of their life here? So this is a teaching model here where you spend time teaching them and kind of pouring into them all the information that they need, all the truth, all the biblical principles, all the concepts, the ideas, those standards that you've set, the morals. I mean, tradition of your family. John Wesley said that truth is measured by tradition as well. Whatever your traditions are, there's something, you pour that into them that first 12 years of their life. Now you help them apply it to their life and become independent so they can stand on their own. You're preparing them for the world that they're going to live in, not the world that you think they ought to live in, but the actual world that they will live in. Are you following me? So I'm going to divide it up by those 12 things. And so this is the teaching part, and this is the training part. And so it means this, that I'm going to move from just sharing information to now I'm going to be sharing more wisdom. And somebody always says, well, where does wisdom come from? It comes from a lot of places. But I would tell you that most of it comes from observation, from what you have seen in life, what you have reflected on, and what you have experienced. So, I ask you the question, what have you observed all your life? As you look back at your life and go, this is what I've seen, what did you learn from that? And what would be bits and pieces that you can apply to a world today? You ever think about that? You ever go back and kind of analyze stuff in your life and go, maybe God was teaching you something? I believe that everything that comes to us is first passed through the hands of God. I don't understand it all the time, but I believe it. And I believe everything that gets to us is to transform us more into his image. I just believe that. I really do, but I don't understand it. I don't get the cancer stuff. I just don't get a lot of stuff. But I do believe those things. And so there's a part of it where I go, if you look at everything, then everything's there to teach us in some way. So what have you learned from the things that what do you learn from the things that you've experienced in life? I didn't start writing books till I was 50 because I always thought nobody should write a book until they're 50 because they're too stupid, like I was. Other people are a lot smarter than I am. And it's a lot for me to write a book, but I spent time, when I said, I can't write this. I really can't do this. A guy up in Oregon said, I want you to write me a story about a dad getting a divorce and the difficulty that it's going to cause for his daughter. And I said, I think I can do that. So I did, because he was going through a divorce and it was affecting his teen daughter. And so then one thing led to the other. But I had to dig deep and start figuring out, okay, how do I find this wisdom? And you can do it. Matter of fact, everybody in this room, you can write a book. You have enough stuff in your life that's gone on that you can write a book about it that would benefit somebody else. And so it's not just your opinion about something, it's the wisdom that you've seen. What have you observed? What have you reflected on? O-R, and the third thing is experience. What have you experienced in life? I still ask the question. When I was in first grade, I saw a lady commit suicide, put a gun to her head and blow her brains out. Still haven't figured out what I'm supposed to learn from that. But I know that happened in my life because I saw it. People will get him to counseling. But then, in fact, we lost our home in a hurricane and a flood. I grew up in New Orleans. I think it affected me. I don't know how. We lost our home in a tornado right before Jane and I got married. I think I've learned not to hold on to things. And I give everything away, but there's just a part of it where you learn. But okay, so what are those truths? That I'm married to my wife who was sexually abused for 7 years, and my son had an affair 9 months after getting married to a gal, and who's now my daughter-in-law and mother of my grandchildren. That my daughter wrestled with an eating disorder, when she cheered at Baylor University. That why can't I breathe out of the left side of my nose? Why do I not? My dad died 2 months ago. Why do I not cry over that? And it really doesn't matter to me. You guys ever reflect on stuff like that in your life? Why was I fired? Somebody said, how did you start Heartlight? Well, I got fired from the job I was at, and I needed to do something. You ever reflect on those things? But it's what you reflect on. That's where you gather wisdom. And out of the abundance of the heart, your mouth will speak because of the scripture that you poured into your life. Am I beating this one up a little bit? Your kids are longing for wisdom. They're drowning in information. They are longing for wisdom because they sure aren't getting it from those people in authority around them because they've discounted everybody in authority. They've gone, I don't want to listen to them. So nobody listens to a politician anymore. Nobody listens to a priest that gets up front. I mean, Boy Scouts have been trashed, because of all the stuff. It's almost like every place there was that coaches can't be involved like they were in my life for years and years and years. Teachers can't be as involved as they have been. And God bless you if you're a teacher. It's the most admirable profession in this world. But there's a part of it where they can't be as involved, but they're longing for places of wisdom. So they're struggling out there and learning, how do I apply this stuff to my life? And it's you, mom and dad. It's you, grandparents. They want your wisdom, grandparents, not your opinion. Are you hearing me on that? Nobody? Opinions are like armpit. Well, never mind. And I'd leave that one alone. Okay, but you move. Have I beat this one enough? You move from talking to listening. Talking to listening. Your kids don't have anybody listening to them because we're all busy talking. We're all busy sharing our opinions. Even a fool appears wise. A fool delights in airing his opinion. We just opinion. Who cares what everybody thinks? It's not the way that you transfer wisdom just by sharing opinions. I'll talk about it tomorrow. It's about giving perspective that's needed. That you move from talking here to listening here. They've spent all their life listening to you. Now it's your turn to listen to them. Sit down and just talk to them. Sit down and just, wow, geez, really, wow. I have kids that come and sit down across from me. That's all I do. And they get up and they go, man, that's the best counseling session I've ever had. You know why? Because somebody listened to them. Do this. I mean, if there's a piece here that I can leave you with, I would call it reflective listening. And I've done that. I don't know where it came from, but kids will come in and on our podcast on radio, I always interview kids that live with us. I have them come in and just, hey, tell me your story. Tell me how you ended up living here with us. Well, I was doing stupid stuff. Why were you doing stupid stuff? Well, I was kind of out of control. Why were you out of control? Well, nothing was working. Why wasn't anything working? Well, when my dad died, everything went to, somewhere. And I go, well, tell me about how it was different when he died. Well, I just felt like I was desperate. Why were you desperate? Because I needed relationships. Why do you need relationships? Because nobody really likes me. Why didn't anybody like you? Kind of ADD, or I'm depressed and I'm anxious all the time. Why do you have ADD and why are you anxious and depressed all the time? Life just hasn't been good for me since I was in the 4th grade. What happened in the 4th grade? I was at a church camp. What happened at the church camp? Do you see what's happening? All I did was say, here, how did you get here? And I took every one of their answers and I just put it in the form of a question. And what that does to a kid, to any kid, basically, try it at home with your own kids. What it does is it shows that you're listening to them because I'm reflecting back to them what they just told me. But the other thing is, this is what I found. We're going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I don't really care about a kid's behavior. Behavior is a visible expression of the invisible issues that are happening in the life of a child. All behavior is goal-oriented. And so I can change their behavior. You can do that with a roll of duct tape. You can move to a place out in the middle of a vineyard in Napa and live in a little tiny house and isolate them from everything. You can stop their behavior. But I want to get to the core of it, because if all behavior is goal-oriented and most of it's relationally driven, that's what I want to get to help them with that. And kids don't need anything they already have. Are you following me? I don't need anything I already have. Somebody would come to me, you need another. I mean, for me, a Texan, do you need another pair of boots? No, I've got plenty of boots. Do you need another gun? No, I don't need any more guns. Do you need another horse? Lord, no. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a horse if you want one. And so, I mean, I don't need that. There's just, do you need a house? I don't need a house. I already live in a house. Do you need a car? I drive a nice truck. I don't need another truck. Do you want somebody to listen to you? Yeah, I do, because nobody listens to me. See what I'm saying? So you want to move here from this talking mentality to this listening over here. You want to spend time really in saying that instead of, giving the answers like we do in a teaching model, then I'm going to start asking more and more questions. I'm just going to ask questions. And when your child begins to answer those questions, don't tell them what they're doing wrong, how they need to say it better. Yeah, I mean, don't correct them all the time. Quit correcting, because you're not connecting. You're correcting to, I only correct them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, leave it alone. Stop. They're getting beat up. They're living in a world that you and I have said that we're glad we don't have to live in. I mean, that's the world they're living in. And then so when they come home, we beat them up even more to tell them how to do it differently all the time. And they're just going, I'm overwhelmed. That's the kid when you pick them up from school. How's your day? Good. What'd you do? Nothing. What do you want to eat tonight? I don't know. What are you going to do after a while? I don't care. That's a kid that is worn out. They are worn out. One of the best things you can do is when they get in the car is just to remain silent. Even a fool appears wise, which is what they want when you keep their mouth shut. And if you spend time asking them questions, then what you're doing is really giving them a model. Ask them this, hey, what's the one thing you'd change about our family? At dinner table, stop and say, I know that I've made some mistakes in our family. I haven't paid attention. Start admitting some things to them. What's the one thing that you would change about me? Text them that right now. Mom and Dad are back up at Napa again and drinking a little too much. Are you following me? Then I start asking questions. There's no right answer. And whatever they say, leave it alone. You just open the door. So they're going, what? What are they asking these questions for? You don't have to change everything. Just change a few things in the life of your family. And it may be that you just start asking questions. So don't interrogate them. Where were you last night? What'd you do? Were you with friends? Why didn't you text me? It's 12:01. You're supposed to be home by 12. You're grounded for 6 months. I'm going, oh, God. Well, are they going to be late? Yeah, they're going to be late. You know why? Because they're adolescents, that's why. Are they going to wreck the car? Sure they will. That's why you carry insurance, isn't it? Do you really think your child's not going to have an accident? Got to protect them from it. You got to train them. Got to help them because you know they're going to have an accident sometime. You're betting the insurance company. Look, dude, I'll give you $200 a month, and I'll bet you that they're going to have an accident, and you're saying they're not. And so if they do, you get to pay the bill. Deal. We'll do it. You know it's going to happen. Let adolescents be adolescents. And quit questioning them in such a way that it's demeaning to them, but question them to get to their heart. Hey, what do you think about guys sending dick pics to other people? That'll wake them up. Have you ever wanted to send a nude to somebody and laugh about it a little bit? I tell people all the time, that is about as sensible. It's about as sensible as me calling Jan on the rotary phone, her rotary princess phone that had too many numbers. You always get mad when you dial the phone and it's too many numbers. Okay, I just aged myself. And it's like me calling Jan on the princess phone and go, hey, Jan, send me a nude Polaroid of yourself through the U.S. mail. How weird that is. And so it's asking the question, hey, what do you think about this? And when they say it, don't share your opinion unless they ask you. I'd ask kids all the time, you want to hear my opinion? They go, nope. Okay. Are you asking me a question or are you asking for my opinion? Kids have said neither. Okay. I let them voice it and that's it. And men do this all the time. Men process out loud. They just, Jan, my wife, always goes, you've told that to me 10 times. I know. So evidently you haven't picked it up, or maybe I'm just processing it a little bit to hear how it sounds. They just want to voice it and hear it. But when I start asking questions, I'm giving them the opportunity to reflect on something. Why? Because one, I want to be what they're observing. I want to be not the one they're observing. I want to be a person that they're observing. I want to create them the opportunity to reflect on things in life. Instead of always giving them the answers, I want to ask the questions. And the third thing, is that I want to spend time having experiences with them. So I go do things with them. Whatever you do in California, whatever you do. Are you following me? Do you do anything with your kids? Then spend some money and do something. You're not taking any of it with you. I've been to so many funerals, there isn't $1 bill that's in that coffin. Not one. Spend it. It's only money. You're going to get rid of it eventually anyway. Spend it and go do something. Create an experience. So when you give the opportunity of observation, let them look at you, reflection, creating this world where they can think, and you're giving experiences, go buy that sailboat. Go buy that wave runner. Go buy a gun and go to a club. Go buy that horse. Go buy a Jeep and get out in the desert here and go nuts and have fun. Buy those four-wheelers. Buy, what else? Go buy a sewing machine. No. I don't even know what, everybody go get the big screen TV to watch the game this afternoon. Come home and have this thing and go buy the best big screen TV there is and convert your garage into a place that your child would go, I love being here. Because Dad, I can play Halo with Dad, or we can play this and that with Dad. And you go, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna have some and spend some time together, and I'll play, but you only get to play this amount. And because I've given it to you, if you don't take good care of it, aren't responsible, I'm taking it away from you, and you don't get it. Or I'm poking one of your eyes out, okay? It's just, you encourage them in some way. But it's asking, what would make you happy? What would you change about your life? What makes you sad all the time? What's the greatest challenge that you have in life? Where have I failed you as a parent? If you can change one thing about me, what would it be? You start asking those questions, you're providing an opportunity for your child to see an example of somebody asking questions. Why? Because I want them to start asking me questions. Hey, Mark, what do you think about this? You know what my answer is? All the time. I don't know. Because the minute I answer it and give them an answer, they quit searching for their own answer. When Scripture says you'll find me when you search for me with your whole heart, that's what I want them to do. It's the journey I want them to be on. I'm not answering it for them. So I go, I don't know. I need to think about that. I don't know how I think about that. I'm kind of conflicted. I don't know. What do you think about this? I don't know that either. You don't know much. Yeah, I know. It's just, you leave it. But I want to ask questions. Here's another one. I moved this. I moved from telling to now sharing. You guys know the difference. I can just tell them everything. Now I'm sharing things. I moved from this. I moved from lecture, which is very effective here. It is not effective here. Get one of those things, little timers that you turn and just set it down. Put it on your phone and put it on 5 minutes. Have a discussion, and when you are talking, when that beeper goes off or the sand runs through the vial or whatever it is, you have to stop because that means you're getting into a lecture. And andragogists will tell you this, that andragogy is the study of adult learning. Lectures are not effective. They're really not effective. So stay away from lectures. Because what you want is to truly move from this lecture mentality to discussion. You want to move from having punishment during the early years to now discipline. And somebody goes, well, what does that have to do with me? What has to do with you? You've got to shift your style of engagement with your child because it's going to look different. Because discipline is helping a team get to where they want to go and keeping them where they don't want to end up. So now I become an ally. I'm not an enemy. I'm helping you get to that place. Are you following me with that? It changes. Punishment, I want them to feel a sense of pain for the choices they have. I don't know what you guys do in California for pain. I mean, in Texas, we drag them behind horses. I'm joking. People get this idea that we do all that stuff. We don't. Well, not all of it. And but I don't know how you make it painful for a kid. But they got to feel pain. I mean, C.S. Lewis says that pain is God's megaphone to a deaf world. It wakes them up. It goes, no, don't go this way. Here, when I move up here, and now it's about discipline, now it has everything to do. Let me help you get to where you want to go. But also give me permission to keep you from ending up where you don't want to end up. The other thing is it moves from words here to actions here. This has everything to do with teaching. Now it's what you do. And we all know that. It's not what you say, it's what you... we all said that. I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are speaking too loud. They want to see you. The only way they're going to see you is by spending time with you, engaging with you. And so you may have a lesson to teach them and it works well in a teaching mode, but not every teachable moment needs to have a lesson with it. You follow me? Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. We are very well-intentioned of wanting to help our kids, and we're the very ones pushing them somewhere else. They'll find somebody to listen to them. Matter of fact, they'll do whatever they have to. I don't care who your child is. If they're created to be relational, which they are, they will do whatever it takes to have a relationship with somebody. They'll have sex with them. They'll smoke pot with them like crazy. Does anybody smoke pot here in California? No. They'll smoke pot just for the sake of connecting with somebody else. They'll do whatever. And so part of it, I go, you've got to move it from you doing everything to now they're doing everything, and you're creating the atmosphere for that to happen. Where it's your responsibility here, now it's their responsibility here. Where it's immaturity here that you allow, because they are mature, that my goal is to move them to maturity here. That I'm making all the decisions here. Now the slide didn't move up. Now I want them to start making decisions. You've got to, when they turn 11 or 12, start letting them make decisions. Quit making all of them. And this is the reason why. You want them to flex their decision-making muscles so they can pick up the heavier stuff when they turn 18 and 19 and go off to TCU or wherever it is, or University of Northern Greenville, wherever that is, and South Carolina, whatever it is. But there's a part of it where I'm preparing them to make good decisions. Why? Because I don't want them to make bad decisions. Are they going to make poor decisions? I'd rather have them make poor decisions when they're living with me so I can speak truth into their life than have them go off and live somewhere else where they don't have that. Come here. We need to talk for a minute. Ooh, wow. You got a ticket? How much was the ticket for? $300. What happened? Wow, I was going 60 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Wow. Are you serious? Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's a lot of money. Was it worth it? No. Wow. Dad, can you help me? Let me think about it. Well, why won't you help me? I don't know. Don't give them an answer. Let them figure it out. Why? Because I want them to learn. I can still love them regardless of their choices. You follow me on that? Because when you say there's nothing you can do to make me love you more, there's nothing you can do to make me love you less. I want a kid to know that no matter what, our family, even at your worst, our family is better off because you're in it. And it's just a mindset that's a little bit different. Are you following me? We got 8 minutes left. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing how fast this thing goes? I want to get through just this part of it, and I'm going to tell you about other parts of it because I'm going to tell you about some resources that I want you to look at. And but one, you're moving from this dependence on you to really creating them an independence. From their, it's your understanding of them. Now it's moving over here. Now I want to understand who they are. I want to grab that. I want me to be in control at that early stage, but now I want them to be. How many of y'all want to be in control of your child when they're 18 and leave home? Not a one of you. How many of y'all want to have a clown on a couch at age 25 playing video games? Nobody does. So I want them to learn how to take control. And I want to move from perfection to imperfection. I think this is important. Most of your kids, if it's preteens, they really think that you're perfect. And you may go around the house quoting scriptures like Matthew 5:48 that says, "Be ye perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect," and all that stuff. But once they get to middle school, they begin to realize that the world is changing on them. I call it the princess brawl. It's where our little princesses go and they find out that everybody else has a tiara. And, they grow up with these princess sheets and princess drapes and princess shower curtains and princess everything. We give them we even call them my little princess. And they go off to middle school and they find out that the world is no longer perfect. And then they begin to see you, because they're moving from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. They begin to see you that you're not perfect. Are you following me? Any of you like living with a perfect person? I hate being around perfect people. They drive me nuts, but who I'm attracted to are imperfect people. It does me well to hear that somebody else is struggling. Somebody else has a tough time. Somebody doesn't quite get it. That I don't know, that they don't know everything. I hate know-it-alls. So it's changing that way that you engage with them. And it may be starting to share a little bit more with them about your imperfections. Hey, mom. Did you have sex with dad before you guys got married? This is your opportunity. This is what you've been waiting for. This is what you've been practicing for. Your child's finally come to you and asking a question. And they're asking because they need to know. Now's your opportunity to share some wisdom with them. And it may be coupled or maybe couched in your own imperfection. We did. And that's why I'm so strong about you not doing the same. And it's not saying, because Scripture says that you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. Now we've moved to information. Your wisdom may be this. Because, sweetheart, this is what I've found, is that having sex before marriage really confuses relationships. And if this is the guy that you want to marry, don't confuse the relationship. It moves in another direction. See the difference in just quoting information or quoting wisdom? Hey, Dad. You ever smoked pot in high school? No, but your mother did. Now's your time. It's not, well, I don't want you smoking pot because you know that the frontal lobe development hasn't really developed fully until you're age 24. Oh, Dad, thanks, man, I didn't know that. I'm not smoking anything now. Really? Is that going to keep him from it? Not at all. But your wisdom will. Because they see the value in it. They see an example before them. They see you as somebody that's going, I'm working with you. I'm trying to do this together for you. And so I tell people all the time that you're really moving from crafting character to coaching character. And you're really moving from, this stuff of what you do here to more about who you are here. But the other thing is this, and I think this is what I want to hit on too, is that there's something here where the Christian life is taught. This is where it's caught. And so if somebody said, speak to preteen parents, that's what I would tell you. They're going to catch it here. But you've got to prepare the stage for this to work. You've got to engage differently, because all the things that I've just mentioned, if you don't change and start providing that, then what you were doing is pushing them away. And they will find a connection somewhere. Are you following me? Here's another thing. I talk about 3 circles. I'm packing it in. We got 2 minutes. I'm packing it in. Here's what I would call a relationship circle. That this becomes important. Your relationship becomes important. Ask yourself the question, what is it that I do that's keeping a relationship from happening with my child? Ask them, text them that today. What am I doing? What do you see? How do I keep us from having a deeper relationship? This becomes important. The other part here is developing structure. Your kids want structure. Most people don't believe that, but they do. They want rules. It's rules without a relationship causes rebellion, but it's relationship without some kind of rules causes chaos. So you want that, so you're moving in a right direction. You got to deal with the structure. And the third circle that I would encourage you in is this one here that merely says this, that you have to deal with the issues at hand. If your child's depressed or anxious, then you have to deal with anxiety and depression. Anxiety is the fear of something that's not known. Depression is really living in what is known. But anxiety is that fear. I don't know what's out there. I can't get out of bed. I can't function. I can't do this. 52% of kids can be diagnosed with DSM-5, which is a diagnostic and statistics manual of just mental illness. And in the world that our kids are living in, they are showing and displaying more and more of these issues of anxiety, depression, ADHD, all the other stuff. And it's a cultural thing. Deal with those issues. Don't just control the behavior. This will control the behavior here, this structure that you have. You have to deal with the issues at heart here. Are you guys following me so far? Okay, I'm going to tell you about some resources. Can I do that? One, I'll tell you this. Listen to our podcast. It's called Parenting Today's Teens. Does anybody here listen to the podcast? It's kind of crazy in one sense. Anybody listen to the radio? Does anybody listen to the radio anymore? Not many. It's changing a little bit, and people are going after podcasts. But there's a brochure back there about the podcast that you can pick up that's on the table back there, and you can do that. The other thing is, before you ever have the opportunity to say, we need to send our child off and go do something, come to one of the things that we do called the Family in Crisis Conference. And I tell you, it's worth the time. It's worth the money because it's expensive to send a kid somewhere and take care of them. So do a Family in Crisis Conference. And if a third of our kids that we have been adopted, a third have been homeschooled, and a third are Southern Baptist. And so if you are a Southern Baptist that is homeschooling your adopted child, you want to pick one of these up in the back. And so you'll take that with you. Let me show you a couple of things here. And this will be fast. Just where you know, I don't get paid for this. Never do. I spend 200 nights on the road, but I don't get paid for speaking and doing stuff. And I don't benefit from the sale of books. And I want you to know that. So I'm not here trying to sell you something. Matter of fact, I would tell you this. If you can't afford any of the books, I want to give them to you and let you take. Now, don't get a big box and run back there and start filling it up and selling it on eBay or Facebook, whatever it is. But there's a devotion for dads. So it's written like at a third grade level, and they're real short stories for dads. And it's just called the Devotion for Dads. We made it very simple, dads, where you would know But it's kind of thoughts and ideas to keep your mind focused on kiddos and stuff. And then there's also a devotional that moms have. It's called a Mom's Devotional. Imagine that. Prayers for My Teens. There's a book that'll be coming out in a couple of weeks that we just got a copy of. It's Daily Hope for Families. And it's a 365-day devotional. I talk about listening skills, and I talk a lot about the shifting of this parenting deal of how to move from a teaching model to a training model. And this book, Raising Teens in a Contrary Culture, is the one. If you have a middle school kid or below, Tough Guys and Drama Queens would be the one that I would say is perfect for your family. If you're a grandparent or you want to get your parents to engage differently so that it's a positive experience, there's a book that Bill and Gloria Gaither encouraged me to write a couple of years ago. It's called Grandparenting Teens. That's if you want grandparents on your side. The first book that I wrote that is probably the one that does most is when your teen is struggling. And it's just, why is my kid doing what they're doing, and how do I help them get out of it? Another book, when I talk about this rule thing, it's developing rules and consequences. That becomes important, just saying, how do we do this in such a way that my child goes, I'll do that. I'll follow that. I'm okay with that. I can do this. This one becomes important. But don't think that if you just put together all the right rules that it's all going to work, because it's really a relational model. I wrote this book, and it came out in May, and it's about my dog Stitch, who died 2 years ago. This was a dog who slept between Jan and I for 13 years. That we've had the same lineage of dogs for 42 years. They're all golden retrievers, and so in the middle of the night, she dies. Or they would say, well, she went to doggy heaven. Oh, well, I know where that is. And quite honestly, I was a little perturbed, but it really started hitting me a little bit that we do this a lot as Christians. We come up with stupid answers that we don't know the answer to, or we make up stuff. And to me, there's just a lot of stuff that's unknown. I would call it what Scripture talks about, the secret things of God, that we just don't know, that there's so much on this side we're not going to be. Stephen Curtis Chapman did an event for us last night, and he was talking about the unfixables in life, that we just don't know, that there's some things that are unfixable this side. So anyway, this book kind of addresses that issue, that I don't know where my dog is. Somebody came to me and said, well, hey, is my dog going to be in heaven? And I go, this is how you tell. When you get to heaven, whistle and see if your dog comes. That's how you'll know. But there's a part of me that I go, a guy down in Southern California said, this is really a religious treatise in a children's book form. And I guess it really is, because it talks about losses and stuff. My point of it is this, is that I can be anywhere. We can start talking about dogs, and somebody will start crying because of a dog that they've lost somewhere along the line. I think it's the same way when other losses in our life come up. And I think it's a pattern. It's not just a book, but it's a mindset that I encourage families to do, is to really have a goal to become genuine and honest. Genuine and honest. If you know, you know. If you don't know, I don't know. I think that's the one thing that is lacking with kids today, is they don't have examples of people who are very authentic and genuine, that are fleshing out this life we call the Christian life, that they're not really reflecting that in such a way that a kid goes, that's who I want to be like. That's because I see something different in them. And I think that's the role that a mom and dad plays. I think that's the role that grandparents play. And so we want to give you as many resources as possible to really feed that mindset during your kids' adolescent years. And so that's where I tell you, listen to podcasts, listen to radio, read books, sign up for our newsletter, come to conferences that we have, do stuff like that. But take advantage of those things, because it's probably the most important time in the life of your child. We've gone to 10:07. We had talked about doing question and answer. I'll answer anything, but it's all yours, man. Thank you guys so much. Loved it.
No, thank you so much, Mark. As we wrap it up, Mark, let me just ask you, if they wanted to send questions to you,
Yeah.
how could they do that?
Well, you can write them down.
Uh-huh.
And what I'll do is take those. I mean, just take a couple of minutes and write them down. And I'll answer those this next week. I'll record them on a podcast, and they'll be aired sometimes. I won't say who it is, but I'll answer those in a podcast. We have another podcast called I Must Ask Mark a Question. And so we, it works. And so we try to answer as many questions as possible. And that's also a resource. You can go and find those things in our archives and all that, because we've answered a lot of those questions that you've got. But just write them down and hand them to me. Take them to the book thing back in the back as you buy out all the books. And
that's perfect. That's your opportunity to be featured on his podcast right there. So I encourage you to follow up on that and just drop those questions off at the back, and he'll get those. Also, as Mark's kind of hinting, whatever questions bouncing around your mind right now, you're probably not the first person to ask it, and you're going to find answers to those questions in the resources that he's sharing with us, as well as online with his digital resources as well. Mark, I want to thank you. What you're talking about, this shift that you're describing in parenting from this first 12 to that second 12, that shift is actually terrifying for us as parents. So we should acknowledge that because it's giving up a sense of control. It's giving up the illusion that we had control, and it's trying to maintain control when things get scary. But I know you're right, and because I will say the scarier thing that I've seen over the years is when that relationship breaks down because our kids have moved into that second phase and we're still parenting in that first phase. And it damages the relationship, and that is far more scary than releasing some of that control. So I just want to take a moment to pray for us, to pray for that courage, to take that transition and to trust God with it. Heavenly Father, we thank you for time to gather together this morning to give our minds and our hearts to what matters so much to us, Lord, how we're raising these kids that you've entrusted to us. Father, it is really scary to think about how to help our kids navigate this crazy world as they move into these teen years, as they're exposed to so much that is not from you. Lord, would you give us the courage to shift into a different kind of parenting with wisdom, with training, with coaching, and with really good listening. Would you help us, Lord, to trust you in that shift, to know that you're in it with us, and that you're in it when we're asking those questions instead of giving our answers, that your Spirit can speak even through our silence. Help us to love well and listen well. Lord, thank you for Mark. Would you continue to bless his ministry? Just help him to reach more people with the wisdom that you've given him and encouragement to press forward and to love our kids well. We ask for all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you thank Mark once again for coming to be with us?